Good afternoon, everyone. Mr. Schramm, I formally declare open this unscheduled council meeting of the Colac Otway Shire on the 1st of February 2023. Almighty God, we seek your blessing and guidance in our deliberations on behalf of the people of the Colac Otway Shire. Enable these council's decisions to be those that contribute to the true welfare and betterment of our community. Amen. I'd like to start this afternoon by acknowledging the traditional custodians and lawmakers of this land, their elders past and present, and welcome any descendants here today. I'd like to advise that this council meeting is recorded and live streamed, with the exception of confidential matters. This includes the public participation sections of meetings. The live stream recording of this afternoon's meeting will be available on the website as soon as practicable. By participating in open council meetings, individuals consent to the use and disclosure of the information they share at the meeting, including any personal and/or sensitive information. In accordance with council's governance rules, I advise that extraordinary circumstances have prevented council from giving public notice at least 7 days before the unscheduled meeting, due to the meeting only being called on the 25th of January 2023. I ask that this be recorded in the minutes. The sole purpose of this unscheduled meeting is to consider the Lake Colac Holiday Park fees and charges. I note that all councillors are present. I'd like to welcome Councillor Tosh Jake Finnegan to their first meeting of the council. We only have 6 councillors at the moment due to the resignation of Councillor Joe McCracken, who has been replaced by Councillor Tosh Jake, and Councillor Jamie Bell, who has left due to new commitments outside the Shire. Wish both of them well in the future endeavours, and we look forward to our 7th councillor being announced in coming weeks. Now, moving on to question time, the Colac Otway Shire encourages community input, and integral to this is the opportunity provided to ask questions at council meetings. A maximum of 15 minutes is allowed for question time at unscheduled council meetings. Community members wishing to ask questions of council by video conference were requested to register their intention to do so before 5 p.m. on Monday the 30th of January 2023. No requests were received. I've received some questions in writing from Mr. Jason Schramm. The questions will be read out and responses will be provided by Ian Surin, General Manager, Community and Economy. Responses will also be provided in writing following the meeting. Mr. Schramm, I'm going to read out all your questions, and as you may recall from your experience, we do have a word count potential limit as per the governance rules, but I'm going to read out everything you've sent in. So question 1, how is it that staff can enter into a lease regardless of its length for the Colac Caravan Park without presenting the lease to council for approval, as per point 6 in the July 27th 2022 resolution, which is quoted here, authorises officers to evaluate submissions to the expression of interest and enter negotiations with preferred proponents before presenting a final lease to council for approval in accordance with the provisions of the Local Government Act 2020. Question 2, why would council set fees and charges until December 2023 and not until the adoption of the new 2023-24 budget, when this process would set new fees and charges from around July 1, 2023 to June 30, 2024? Question 3, why, when the failed tender process concluded and failed to have an applicant, did council not run an open expression of interest or request for quotes to manage the park under a short-term lease and the other arrangement until June 30, 2023? And how can council appoint a manager without a public process? Remembering the failed tender closed in September, allowing for ample time to sort out via a proper process before the old lease expired. Question 4, as it is a public asset, what is the value of the short-term lease? i.e. how much money does the ratepayer receive into the council coffers for the 30-day lease? Question 5. What are the terms of the intended takeover of the management from Belgravia Pro from the 25th of February 2023 until 30 of June 2023? A. Is it at a cost to the ratepayer to pay this company a monthly fee to manage the park on council's behalf? B. Were any other companies or individuals allowed to apply for the management of the park, i.e. was it a competitive process or a secret deal done behind closed doors? C. Will council upgrade the amenities as per the terms of the tender, or will Belgravia Pro as per the tender's new lease conditions? And question 6, will council acknowledge that putting unrealistic terms and meddling in private enterprise like 100% green energy and building 5 cabins for essential workers, etc., into the tender process contributed to the failure to have an applicant in the process, causing an immense cost to the ratepayer and tourism for the area? Mr. Surin.
Through you, Mayor. Thanks for the questions, Mr. Schramm. The expressions of interest process approved by Council in July 2022 sought to establish a long-term lease for the caravan park. This long-term lease would have been determined by Council through formal resolution as per its decision at the July 2022 meeting. The EOI process did not lead to the desired outcome of a long-term lease, and therefore Council is still to work through establishing the longer-term arrangements. It is our view that the current short-term lease is not contradictory to the resolution of Council at its July 2022 meeting. Councillors were briefed at the conclusion of the EOI invitation period and were clear about the importance of the park operating until a long-term arrangement is established. Councillors supported officers to investigate short-term options to achieve this, including but not limited to having a management agreement with an appropriate service provider or in-house management of the park. In recognition of the importance of the park to the local economy, interim arrangements have been established, including a 30-day lease. The CEO exercised their delegation to establish this lease following communication with the councillors. We also want to acknowledge the support of the Victorian Government's Crown Land team, who went above and beyond to assist Council by approving the short-term lease quickly, a recognition that they also value the importance of the continued operation of the caravan park to the community. Officers spoke to a number of providers and assessed in-house delivery before entering into the arrangements with Belgravia Pro. These arrangements fall within Council's procurement policies and didn't require a separate market test. Additionally, there's been great transparency for the community and the market through the 2022 reports to Council and the subsequent EOI process. It is not appropriate for Council to publicly discuss the details of the commercial arrangements with Belgravia Pro. The financial result of these arrangements will be greatly dependent on occupancy rates and in turn income, which is why officers are requesting Council to set fees at today's meeting. Fees and charges need to be set for a period sufficiently into the future to enable forward bookings. However, this does not indicate any predetermined future management model at this time. With respect to Council's 2023-24 budget, this is expected to be adopted in the last week of June, which is far too late to support future bookings at the park. With respect to the EOI terms, such as power, cabins, etc., these are consistent with the Council's strategic direction. The feedback from parties who engaged with Council through the EOI process didn't state that these terms were considered unreasonable or impacted their interest. We understand there is strong interest in the community about the future of the Lake Colac Holiday Park. Further work is required to achieve a long-term outcome that will deliver the important benefits to Council and the community. Until this is achieved, these short-term arrangements provide a positive outcome for the region because the caravan park will be available for the current permanent residents and visitors to Colac, particularly with the upcoming major sporting events in February and March, along with the Easter holiday period, which attract many people to Colac.
Thanks, Mr. Surin. Do we have any questions from the gallery? Mr. Schramm?
Thank you, Mayor and councillors. Would Council consider upgrading the amenities themselves if it's so urgently required, considering you're the managers of the land down there?
Mr. Surin?
Through you, Mayor. Thanks for the question. That is one of the considerations that we'll be talking to councillors in the next couple of weeks regarding this issue.
One more.
Go ahead, one more.
Would council consider just running it under its management agreement or whatever it does for the near future, and consider a possibility of not having a caravan park there anymore and having a convention centre, motel, restaurant, plans drawn up, fully funded so that they can sell it to investors to take over, like on a 99-year lease, and provide a water sports club, much needed accommodation, and a convention centre in an absolutely fantastic spot? Would council consider that, or consider doing some public consultation on the future use of the park before they enter into any future long-term leases? Thanks.
Somebody, or otherwise will.
I'm happy to
yeah.
respond. Firstly, just to acknowledge the visionary aspiration that Mr Schramm has for that site, because clearly it is just a beautiful location and has a lot to offer, we understand. However, the use of the land is significantly constrained by the underlying Crown land constraints, and we know that there have been conversations over time with representatives from state government around the Crown land use that probably will rule out a number of those things that you just mentioned. We'll continue to make sure that we promote to the Crown land managers in state government that we want to see the best outcome possible at the land, but I think that some of those are going to be ruled out.
Thank you. That concludes question time. Councillors, are there any, or staff, are there any declarations of interest, please? Thank you. Now we move on to item 7.1, Lake Colac Holiday Park fees and charges. The purpose of this item is to set the fees and charges for Lake Colac Holiday Park. Do councillors have any questions of officers? Mr. Hart.
Thanks, Mayor. I just want to tease out an understanding, please, through you, Mayor. Who sets the fees up until to and including the 24th of February? And what's the distinction between the fees up until, let's say, the 24th of February and the fees that we're being asked to set the fees from the 25th?
Mr. Meyer, do you want to take that?
Yes, thanks for the question, Councillor Hart. Under a lease arrangement which is in place up until the 24th inclusive of February, the council's tenants has the authority to set the fees and charges which are currently being charged at the park. They are currently charging the fees and charges which are also proposed today to be included, if council resolves to approve them, to be charged from 25th of February. So they're currently charging the same as is on the screen right now.
Another question?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. In relation to the proposed fee for the permanent residents, which is $200 a week, do we know whether that's an increase for the residents or is it a mixed outcome?
Thanks, Mr. Meyer.
Through the Mayor, again, thanks for the question, Councillor Hart. As indicated in the reports, currently annuals, we believe, are paying a range of fees from, permanent residents are paying a range of fees from $170 to $280 per week, which will mean a flat fee of $200 per week for all will be a slight increase for some and a decrease for others, with everyone moving to a same fixed rate.
Any other questions, councillors? Councillors, officers have provided a recommendation with this report for consideration. Does any councillor wish to move a motion in relation to this matter? Councillor White, is that the motions up on the screen? Can we have that up, please? So that's what you'd like to move, Councillor White? Thank you. Do we have a seconder for that? Thanks, Councillor Hanson. Is it to be opposed?
I was going to seek to move an amendment to that.
You wish to move an amendment?
Yes, that I've just sort of discussed with Marla. Obviously, I understand this is my first meeting, but I was going to seek that at the, so for, obviously, agree to the, as it's put, but then add to the end, that council resolves no further short-term lease or management arrangement for the Lake Colac Caravan Park be entered into with a commercial operator without the express approval of the Colac Otway Shire Council, notwithstanding what's already in this motion.
Is there a second to Councillor Costin? Is yes, Councillor White, would you be open to including that in your motion, or do you want to debate the amendment? How do you feel, Councillor White? Otherwise, we'll just debate the amendment.
Yeah, I guess I feel it's been thrown in at the very end after we've had plenty of time for discussion and to come to a bit of an agreement about what we were aiming to achieve. It changes. It's a significant change. I'd like to get maybe officers' opinion about what that would mean.
Certainly, we can ask officers. Mr. Cyril and Mr. Mott, do you have a view on an amendment that's proposed? CEO.
So at face value, it doesn't appear to contradict the setting of fees beyond the immediate lease. So I don't think it's contradictory. So council certainly can consider this as an amendment. Okay. I guess just to share what I think at this time would be the practical implication of that. That would mean that for Belgravia to move to a management agreement until the 30th of June, as had been proposed, we would need to call another special meeting probably in the next 48 hours to ask council to consider that. Or if council wasn't in a position to consider a management agreement urgently with Belgravia, then that would revert to the organisation either directly managing the park from the 25th of January or closing the doors. We won't have current further bookings and commitments beyond the 25th of February, so there won't be any obligations to others that we would need to meet, and if we're not able to resource that, then the outcome would be we would just have to hold until we can find a way to have direction from council.
Sorry, may I interrupt there? My understanding is, and I may have worded that incorrectly, that would have been from the agreement that's to the 30th of June, so from the end of that.
Thank you for clarifying, council.
Yeah, thank you.
Finnegan,
Sorry.
that's not how it worded.
Okay, my apologies. That should be.
Okay.
I do apologise. That should, so from the arrangement that's going to be in place until the 30th of June, that nothing be entered into after that, if that makes sense. Sorry, this was something that I thought of just then. So.
Yeah.
So it gives us. After the date of the 30th of June, which is where we're...
I think perhaps, can I suggest, Councillor Finnegan, you might be comfortable with adding beyond 30th of June 2023 after the words Lake Colac Holiday Park.
I defer to your judgment on that. Thanks, CEO.
No, and no.
So, Councillor White, I don't
after holiday park.
Doesn't change what we're setting out to achieve, but it's your motion on the floor at the moment. So if you don't want to accept the amendment, we can
So
debate
that
it and vote on.
23.
You're saying that doesn't change what we're setting out to achieve today?
Councillor Hanson.
I think it's worth clarifying. It's just a question to the officers. If we get down to a point where we go out for an EOI, it's successful, but we might have somebody that's going to take over the park September 2023 or July or August, and that means that, you know, you wouldn't have the flexibility. This removes that flexibility to just continue the short-term lease for a couple of months until the new lessee
That's correct.
sort of takes over.
That's correct. This would override our normal delegations.
Would this allow us to meet as council to approve an extension?
Yeah, this would require council.
Yes, thank
do
you.
that.
So just to be clear, there'd be nothing stopping council meeting if a new operator came in and decided, okay, we're going to take over from the 25th of September. There would be nothing stopping us from council meeting to approve an extension of the current arrangement until that date.
Effectively, council would have to resolve on what the interim arrangements would be.
Thank you, CEO.
Look, I think I'm comfortable with the original motion as it's put and
Amendments
as Kate
seconded.
has seconded. I think I'd prefer to stick with that and the flexibility for the council officers to manage the arrangements. That's what I'm comfortable with. So can we test the original?
Yes, we'll have to debate on the amendment. Councillor Finnegan, do you want to speak to your amendment?
Thank you, Mayor. So I've obviously just come up with this amendment here because I think it's important that councillors have the say, especially over something that can be a contentious issue, and bring into light what has happened with Forest in the last 24 hours. I think it's important that councillors have the say on whether or not to extend arrangements rather than council officers at this stage, particularly on this matter. That's why I've moved this amendment. I do apologise I didn't circulate this beforehand because it was only a light bulb moment, shall we say. But I do think it's important that councillors vote on any extension or, yeah.
Councillor Costin.
Thank you, Mayor. I think it's important that we don't let this matter drift along, and this amendment creates a sense of urgency, and I'm always in favour of a sense of urgency. Thank you.
Thank you, councillors. I'll put the... Councillor Hart, sorry.
Mayor, I'm just on the edge of my seat waiting for you to invite the... I think I heard there was opposition to the amendment, so wouldn't the next step be to invite...
Yes, okay. Thank you. Is the amendment to be opposed? Yep. Councillor Hanson, do you want to speak, please?
I think the amendment is unnecessary. I think it possibly puts a bit of constraint that's unnecessary when we're really the desired outcome is, but just speaking to this amendment, I'm not going to support it because I actually just think it's unnecessary and removes flexibility, and we might need that when it comes to, you know, negotiating a new lessee. So I certainly support flexibility, and I think this removes it.
Anybody else wish to speak?
Really briefly, more or less what Kate said, but in terms of the urgency, I think it actually adds another layer, and to have the flexibility for council officers to move this along as quickly as possible and get the outcome that we want, I don't think it's unnecessary to put this in.
Thank you, Councillor Hart.
Thanks, Mayor. I will be supporting the amendment and hope to have a little more to say of the circumstances that have led us here. And I think that I actually commend the CEO and her officers for being able to get an arrangement in place. I think that was absolutely necessary in the circumstances. And as council will no longer have someone leasing it from the February date, we have to set the fees. That's a requirement, otherwise there'll be no fees, and that's critical to take bookings. But I don't see that this amendment adversely affects any of that. Effectively, what this amendment does is say that if that agreement is to be extended beyond 30th of June 2023, it has to be decided by council. And I think that's the expectation of the community. I fully accept and don't criticise the need to set fees today, but I don't see that having this requirement, which will only come into effect if there's a need to extend those temporary arrangements beyond 30th of June. So there'll be plenty of time to resolve that at the June meeting if that becomes necessary. I think that's balancing dealing with the immediate issue of having fees, but ensuring that we have close scrutiny of this process, which I think would be the expectation of the community. So I'll be voting for the amendment.
Thanks for the Councillor Hart. I'll now call for a vote in support of the amendment. Those in favour? Those against? The amendment is supported 4-2.
Should we call for a division so that's noted?
We can certainly do that. Those in favour? Councillor Costin, Councillor Hart, Councillor Finnegan, Councillor Potter. Those against? Councillor Hanson, Councillor White. Councillor White, the substantive motion is there. You haven't spoken. Did you want to talk to the motion that we have in front of us, please? Speak first, I think.
So to be clear, am I now still the mover of this motion, even though I voted against the amendment?
No, you speak first.
I speak first. Look, I was happy to move the motion as it was. I think we came up with some good changes to address that. We made sure that there would be no disadvantage to people and that they would have plenty of time to adjust to the new fees and charges. I think this was really around enabling and getting things moving so that we could continue offering the service down at the caravan park. And I was very satisfied that we're going to have a briefing in February to give us more information on which we will then be able to make decisions down the track. So that's where I stand with this.
Yeah. Councillor, you reserve. Councillor, Councillor Hart?
Sorry, Councillor Hanson's reserved.
Sorry, Councillor Hanson reserved.
Oh, yeah. When you're ready, I'm happy to speak.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll be supporting this amended resolution. I think it's obviously a very important asset and facility for the Colac Otway Shire. I do repeat what I said earlier. I do commend the CEO and officers for coming up to this initial arrangement. which is only for a month. The problem at the moment is you can't take bookings beyond the 25th of February because there are no fees set. And the arrangement of the lease is only for a month. It's only got a few weeks to go. So that leaves a responsibility for council to set the fees while an expression of interest process is undertaken, and that's what we're doing today. The bit that's been changed in red and that I'm supportive of, I think it needs to be made clear that the fee of $200 a week will only apply from after 30th of June, or if someone's paying higher, that they can have the opportunity to be reduced down to $200 a week, more or less straight away. The other part that I supported, and I'll be voting in favour, it makes it explicitly clear in point 4 that there will be a briefing in February 2023, and the clause that was added by Councillor Finnegan's amendment makes it clear that if these arrangements can't continue beyond 30th of June 2023 unless it's approved by council resolution. So it's achieving the balance of keeping the park open, of allowing bookings to be taken, but scrutiny and moving on the issue of an expression of interest. So that's the reason I'll be supporting what we now have before us.
I think that's it, isn't it? Me. Oh, Todd. Yeah, right. Any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Finnegan.
Sorry, yes, just briefly. Would like to speak in support of the motion as it's amended. I echo Councillor Hart's statement. It deals with the issue of setting the fees and being able to manage the park in the interim. And it enables us to give some tenants a reduction in the rate they are paying at this stage. It sorts the issue of our long-term tenants who are currently at the park. And it also notes that there will be a briefing in February 2023 from council officers on what's going to happen. And obviously the amendment states that, councillors have to make the decision beyond June 30, not council officers.
Any other councillor? Councillor Costin.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I'd like to thank the officers for their good work on this. It's always a very difficult situation when you don't get the expressions of interest you were hoping to get, and this seems a reasonable way through this. And I've been given reasonable assurance that there won't be any adverse impact on our budget. And the amendments we've put in regarding the long-term tenants, good social safeguards. Thank you. But I think it's important that we not let this drift and that councillors be part of the process, be closely involved in the process. So I support the amended motion. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Costin. Look, I'll speak to this just so my fellow councillors know. Oh, sorry, Kate, you reserved.
Yep, I support setting the fees and charges. They actually, it's really important that the fees and charges are set and that we have somebody operating the caravan park, because it's important for the people who hopefully will seriously look at operating the caravan park in the future, because forward bookings are something that they need to know, and something that really they'll take into consideration of whether they take on the caravan park or not. What concerns me about the point that's been added is it's the inflexibility, and I think that probably it sort of means that, you know, if the arrangements needed to be extended for a couple of months or whatever, we'll be, you know, coming back to a special council meeting, which we'll probably have to hold in about 2 months' time, or maybe even 3 months' time, and it just lacks the flexibility. You know, for me, it probably adds bureaucracy, and I don't think just because a council meeting doesn't mean councillors aren't involved. You know, I've taken a great interest in the caravan park, and you know, we've certainly been given plenty of information from the officers in briefings. So I don't for a minute think that you have to have a council meeting for it to say that councillors are involved. But anyway, I won't throw the baby out with the bathwater. I will support the motion, but yeah, just not particularly comfortable with point 4. Point 5.
Thanks, Councillor Hanson. I'll just speak to this just very quickly. I was happy with the original motion that was put up by Councillor White, and I think Councillor Hanson is right when she says that this potentially adds another level of bureaucracy, and we have to be careful about the flexibility. However, I do think it adds a level of transparency to the process, which is of great interest to the community. The caravan park is of enormous interest to the community and valuable to this shire, and I think the interest is worthy of just a little bit of added transparency about the process in the next step. So that's why I supported this motion. Councillor, call for the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. The motion is carried 6-0. That concludes the meeting today. Councillors and staff, thank you for your attendance.